That's a really important part of learning, having the students articulate their thinking, trying to use mathematical language to explain concepts. And there's quite a lot to make that interaction happen. You've got speech to text, then you've got the intelligence layer that does things on what that text, and then you've got text to speech. And that all has to happen in a very small amount of latency. What the AI can do is it can, in absolute split seconds, diagnose what a misconception is, and then take the best course of action to scaffold or guide or ask the right question next. All this does is it matches the expected answer with the answer that the student gives.
Welcome to Thinking Deeply About Primary Education, the podcast that makes time and space think about pedagogy, teaching and learning, professional development, anything of interest to time-poor but enthusiasm-rich primary teachers. So this week I'm joined by Candida Crawford. Hi, Candida, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all. And so we're going to explore Skye, which is the third space artificial intelligence tutor. I've been, Neil Almond recommended that I test it out with my boys. I've been testing it with my boys for a bit, and I thought, actually, let's have a chat about this and what the future might hold for the world of tuition. I suppose I should outline at the beginning, not a sponsored episode, just an inquisitive episode. And because you spoke at our London conference, I thought it might be good to bring on the podcast.
Yeah, sounds good.
My first question is about the problem in maths education that Skye is built to solve. But is there anything that we need to really explore initially before we can address that question?
I think that what we'd like to explore is in that question. So I think diving into that would be good. The problem that we're trying to solve is a problem that we've been trying to address for over a decade now, because third space learning has been delivering online one-to-one tuition for 11, 12 years already, using humans to deliver these sessions. But the problem that we've really been trying to tackle is maths attainment. So really the high rate of maths failure in the UK. I mean, there are some shocking stats around like 27% of 11-year-olds or 33% of 16-year-olds are failing government maths tests. So there is an issue around maths failure, maths confidence, maths anxiety. And we've really, we kind of know what works in helping with tackling this problem, which is high impact tutoring. And what we mean by high impact tutoring is if you have an opportunity to have a one-to-one engaging, spoken, high quality interaction with a student, you're able to really move the dial in helping them reduce anxiety, increase confidence, but also make them achieve better in these tests and reduce maths failure. So that's definitely the problem that we've been looking at over the years. And interestingly, now we're at a point where AI tech has really come to a place where we can leverage it with all of our experience. So the fact that we can use an LLM to have a conversation with a student, we really started to explore how can an LLM deliver, or we first started asking these questions about, can it deliver these sequences of learning or these programs of learning that we've created, and it has been doing that effectively. So that's a great moment to be in.
What was it that sort of suggested that now was the time to move from humans to this artificial intelligence model? I mean, was it almost the scale, the opportunity that is involved when you're working with artificial intelligence, or were there other sort of factors involved?
It definitely is because LLMs came, about 2 years ago, they came to the forefront, and it was curiosity, first of all, to see if that works, but then the ability for us to use it to scale this intervention. So cost has been a factor. Schools' budgets are tighter than ever, so that has been a limiting factor in delivering this one-to-one tuition. And with AI coming to the forefront, it's really opened up this opportunity to see if it's able to scale. And also, I think what AI gives us is a lot of consistency and quality that perhaps a human tutor can't give at scale. Well, many of them can, but at scale, it's more difficult to achieve. So I think that's the reason, kind of why now.
When I imagine the human tutor, I'm imagining the best case scenario where you've got one to one, you're getting really high quality instruction, and you've got a real chance to move forward. So it's interesting here that if you shift the lens slightly, then that at scale that's difficult to replicate, probably a more realistic view. I mean, what sort of cost savings are there? Because that hadn't really crossed my mind, but like relative to what it would cost with humans and with artificial intelligence, what can schools expect the difference to be? Like, I mean, are we talking thousands and thousands, or does it depend on the situation?
So a lot of what we are offering is not a cheaper product. That's not really what we're doing. It's really increasing the value that schools can get from this. So we're not talking about what high impact tutoring is about. For us to really move the dial, it needs to be high dosage, or we need to be able to not just have one session every 2 weeks or one a week. If we can really up the amount of sessions we can deliver, that's really important. So that really increases the value and the ability for greater impact. And we can give it at almost an unlimited capacity here. We can and give it to all students, not just the 2 or 3% of students that your pupil premium budget stretches to. So it is significant. I mean, I don't know, like half the price of a human tutoring per session, but it is cheaper, if I use that word, cheaper than a regular human session, but it's the value that it can add. So a school can use it for all of their year threes, fours, fives, sixes, and all their for GCSE, but they could offer it to their year seven, their year tens. So and we can widen it and offer lots and lots of sessions, and it's also when. So they can self-launch sessions, so they can do it outside of the school, even though it's very, very much a school product. We do offer it so that it's monitored by the teachers. But it can be launched at every half hour, at 5 minutes past the hour, before assembly, after school. So it's the value we're really talking to here, rather than being more cost effective.
What would one elementary school, if they were to roll it out across the whole school, be expected to pay? I mean, we're going to get bogged down in price, but I think it's important.
I think it's something like 4,000 for all this, £4,000 for the whole school for all their students, unlimited for the year. There's other tiers, but I think that's generally where we're sitting at.
Yeah, and has that been arrived at almost like the number of sessions, the number of, and so that would cost like pennies a day kind of situation? Is that how you guys have arrived at that?
I think it's I don't quite know how we've arrived at it, to be honest. I think that there's definitely a lot of modeling that went into the decision about what the right amount is. I suppose we do have a fair usage. So ideally, what we would want, what wouldn't work, is if every single student uses it for hours and hours every day. I think we would definitely go into the red. We wouldn't be able to afford that. So there is fair usage, but actually, if anything, we are really one of our initiatives and one of the KPIs we look at as a company is usage, because it's so important for us to make sure that the students are using the product. So we want to be seeing a student on these 2, 3, 4 times a week, well, as much as they want to. So yeah, don't quite know how they got to that price.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, I'd probably put the cart before the horse because I am going to ask about sort of what happens under the hood. So maybe
Yes.
maybe we can continue that bit of the conversation
Yeah.
when we get to that. So I'd like to start this episode with a bit of housekeeping instead of a read for one of the different things that we're promoting. But for a brief moment, I thought that doing sponsored episodes would help the podcast grow, and in fairness, it probably would. You know, more money, more reach, more momentum, all that stuff. But I tried it once, and I didn't really like the experience. Not because of the group involved; they were genuinely great, easy to work with, professional, no drama. Um, and this isn't a subtweet. There's no scandal. You know, they were totally signed. But I realized something. I don't want to feel like I'm recommending things with one hand while holding an invoice in the other. All right? I want to be able to say what I think, just like we have done over the last 5 and a bit years. I want to be able to change my mind, be skeptical, be enthusiastic, or be unimpressed without that little voice going, careful, this is paid. And I'm sure no one would ever do that, but that's what's been in my mind. And there's another bit. You know, I really wanted to have Andy on again because I think the conversation really matters. And I was really impressed by Andy. He's someone I would have in the podcast anyway, but I didn't want the next appearance to come with a price tag attached. Not for him, not for the audience, not for anyone. So after one sponsored episode, we're just back to business as usual, back to the sanctimonious virtue signaling of the usual order. Everything's back to normal. I am morally flawless, obviously. But seriously, if I recommend something on here, it's because I think it's worth your time, because I've used it, my colleagues are using it, my friends are using it. And if I don't, I won't. You know, as I say, I'm going to say later in this episode, you make your choice. You listen, you read between the lines. I'll keep the conversation as uninhibited as I can. You know, so that's where we are. So I wanted to outline that because, yeah, nothing, you know, if sponsorship's your thing, that's fine. But after one episode, I thought, no, I want to I want to continue as I was. So, back to the episode. What view of how children learn mathematics is embedded in Skye's design?
Okay, so there's, like I said, we've been doing this for over a decade. So there's a lot of the design that's not necessarily just Skye, that is how you deliver a high impact, good quality intervention. So, we've got a lot of learning science in how we design our lessons. So there's all the things that need to be in there to have effective outcomes. We've got what scaffolded instruction, small steps. You've got the I do, we do, guided practice. There's a lot of focus on trying to get the ZPD right so that the student is the work is not too easy or not too difficult. Verbal reasoning was quite an important thing we focused on when developing Skye, because that's a really important part of learning, having the students articulate their thinking, trying to use mathematical language to explain concepts and try and understand. And that's also where we get to understand their metacognition. So verbal reasoning is a thing that we made sure to keep when we developed Skye, because we could have gone down a route where we don't really get the student to speak much. We could just speak at, well, we could not, we could just speak at the student and have the student type out answers. But this is part of what's under the hood a little bit. There's quite a lot to make that interaction happen. You've got speech to text, then you've got the intelligence layer that does things on what that text, and then you've got text to speech, and that all has to happen in a very small amount of latency. So that's while in quite complex environments with background noise, students' accents, not completing sentences, turn taking, like when do you interrupt and when is a sentence complete? But so all of that was an important decision we made from the beginning, that we were actually going to focus on that, because verbal reasoning is a really important part of the product we offer. What else? Addressing misconceptions. So it's not just tick, 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 right, right, wrong, wrong. We don't just hint. It's the idea is about interpreting what the student has just said, identifying the misconception, and then responding appropriately to that. So that's a lot of the learning principles we made sure to build into Skye.
When you outline it like that, I mean, I've seen like I've been sitting beside my youngest whenever he's been on,
Yeah,
and it's almost it is almost at times flawed, a really seamless conversation that you're having. I mean, he could do with speaking a bit louder sometimes,
yeah.
but yeah, given that so much is happening, I think that's you're very very close to what you're hoping there in terms of the that interaction. Before we go any further, a tiny detour. If you're anything like me, you probably had moments where you've thought, why does this bit of mathematics feel so hard to teach? And it's quite often because we're trying to deliver a set of procedures without the story that makes them make sense. And that's why I keep coming back to the story of mathematics, not because it gives you a box of tricks, but because it gives you the through line where ideas came from, why they mattered, and why they ended up looking the way they do in our curriculum. Now, there's no hard sell here, there never is. If you're happy with how maths feels in your classroom, crack on. But if you've got pupils who do the steps and still don't get it, then this is a really sensible place to spend your attention as school leaders, as teachers, in search of mathematics that makes sense to everyone. I've seen a video, but if I walked into a school using Skye tomorrow, what would I see a teacher and student actually doing?
So you would see a class of, say, 15, 20 children sitting in front of a computer. They all have headsets on, and they'll be working through a lesson, maybe different lessons to each other. They'll be answering questions by filling in some answers. They will be verbally responding, explaining, and then they'll be in a conversation with Skye, but each in their own little bubble, in their own little world. And then they're all going on different pathways and adjusting accordingly. And then you would you would see the teacher. Hopefully the teacher is walking around as an active participant. They don't have to be involved in, but there's a lot of behavioral management, making sure that the students are all sitting and concentrating. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the image you would see. They have a shared. We've got a shared like whiteboard screen, a screen, and there's no video. There's not like a video of the avatar speaking. The focus is really the maths on the screen and the questions that we're busy working through.
And am I right in thinking there's almost like some sort of check for prior understanding, then there'll be some input, some rehearsal, and then almost like a review. Is that a fair
Yeah.
description of the process that those children are going through?
Yes. So the sequence of a lesson, the student will arrive at the concept. So they'll have an introduction, and then they will have what we call a skill check-in. This is our kind of pre-assessments, and then we've got a post-assessment at the end of it as well. This is our first data point, and the student has a go. From what if the student gets it right or wrong, we have our baseline understanding of where the student is, some where are they with the concept, and then we adjust. So if the student has got it, let's go for the wrong. They got it wrong. They will go on the pathway where we will go to a let's learn, where we explore the concept. There'll be visual representations. We're kind of going into teaching mode. There is some backwards and forwards conversation around that. And then we move into our kind of scaffolded I do, we do section. We call it my turn, your turn. And we go through that for a couple of slides. And then we have independent practice, our practice section. So we'll have, intelligent practice or variation theory to help them just answer these questions. The idea here is that they're trying to do it a bit more independently, but for everything that they get wrong, we will go into kind of scaffolding. We'll ask a question, ask for reasoning, guide them a little bit towards where they should be going. And then we finish off that whole lesson with a go further, which is just a bit of mastery, kind of exploring the concepts a bit more deeply or some connected themes. And then we finish off with our post-assessment questions. So these are kind of our bookends. Great data pieces really makes you understand, where they come from and where they're going to. So that's good. But they're not always in isolation. Like they are good to tell you as an assessment piece, but we know assessment can only take you that far. And then we also have a kind of confidence checkout where we find out, trying to get more of a feel for their affect or their metacognition. How much more confident or less confident are they feeling around the topic? So that's kind of the journey a student goes through within a single lesson.
Yeah, I like the confidence bit because I think when you're asked to describe confidence, there's some sort of relationship between how well you're going to remember this in the future. And, I mean, the research is on individual questions, but I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some relationship between reviewing what you've just done and how likely you remember it.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a connection with that. There's also a connection with seeing if they got the question wrong or right, and then how confident they feel about it. Sometimes there is a disconnect there. I feel super confident, but they've got all the questions wrong. So that's interesting. But then it's also our way of trying to measure and understand what we call student success. And student success is not just getting a question right or wrong. It is the hardcore skill improvement, but it is metacognition. So the verbal reasoning is important. So we track that over a session, but it's also metacognitive or affect. So are they feeling more confident? So kind of triangulating and capturing improvements. Like I said, the problem we're trying to solve is not just is maths attainment, but it's also confidence and maths anxiety. So it's important to track this as well.
Although probably not proven, there's definitely a correlation between anxiety and confidence and competence in mathematics. I mean, obviously, I've seen like a limited, like sort of section or subsection of Skye. Like, what sort of facility do you have for pupils to encounter ideas multiple times? Say maybe after a month or 2 months, and when the memory has started to degrade or fade. What's the
Retrieval
system like?
practice. Yeah, that is an area that we definitely are going to be working on in the future. Our programs move through, so we've got these learning programs, and then we've got a SATs program and a GCSE program, which is a lot more revision focused. So we deal a lot with like how to answer questions, how to tackle a question, in those two. So in a way, that's a bit more. They're maybe more interleaved. So those programs are that you going from one type of topic. The topics are mixed, and you circling through these topics and ideas. Sometimes a bit more deeply, sometimes revisiting. I don't know, place value in measurements. So there is this within our revision programs. But an area we definitely need to work on and will start to work on is retrieval practice, and also this is also where you test long-term understanding. So having a performance measure, and this is why I was saying with a pre and post question on a lesson, is only going to tell you so much because it's an assessment point and it's happened directly after you've been taught that, but it's not testing long-term memory here. And to develop that, we need to do retrieval and practice more. And there's ways of doing it. We can start building into our lesson, just 5 minutes, let's recap from different parts. We were thinking of adding some type of like homework section where they can go just practice, like a board where they can go practice other things, and things go green or red if they need more time. Or we just put into our sequence of lessons some revisiting visiting of it, and then just trying to capture more long-term measures of memory and understanding here.
Small interruption, and then we're back in. If you're listening to this, you're the sort of person who actually enjoys thinking about teaching, which is really, really admirable. The Tadat Bay Northwest Conference, basically a room full of that energy. People who don't want 10 tips for Tuesday, they want ideas that hold up on a wet Wednesday in November. Now, tickets are available from Eventbrite. No guilt, no last chance. It's just useful. Come. If it's not, don't. But if you've been craving proper professional conversations with people who care about the craft, then this is that. 20th of March, 8:30 until 2 p.m. Tickets are on sale now. Get them while you can. We've almost sort of danced around a little bit. When you say Skye is artificially intelligence powered, I mean, that's probably my phrase rather than yours, but what is the AI actually doing that couldn't be done without it?
Okay, so we talked a bit about the consistency with humans. So what the AI can do is it can, in absolute split seconds, diagnose what a misconception is, and then take the best course of action to scaffold or guide or ask the right question next. So humans do this, and you alluded to it a bit earlier as well. Really good teachers do this. Teachers with experience do this, right? They kind of recognize that this is a misconception loop, or it's a behavioral problem, or it's a disengagement problem, and they will be able to react in real time well. And that you learn from experience. But a lot of teachers, or even especially tutors who don't perhaps have, training and degrees in teaching, maybe are not as consistent as this. And so I think the AI is able to, in an instant, consistently, irrespective of how tired it's feeling or grumpy it's feeling, give an accurate diagnosis of the misconception. So I think that is the most powerful thing that is AI powered. I think we also talked about it with scale. So I think it feeds into our ability to offer this program and this intervention at scale. Because with humans, I mean, with TSL, we had over 2,000 tutors. There is a massive human operational piece here. Just timetabling, matching, recruiting, training, quality assurance. We would have assessors to evaluate. So that all we don't have to do all of that anymore. So we're able to scale and offer this product 4 times a week at random hours of the day. So I think those are the two main areas that I think AI is really enabling us. This is what is powering our offering now.
Did you guys train your model? Because when I ask my ChatGPT, I mean, others are available, but if they do take over, I'm in trouble because I'm always giving it stick about how bad it is at maths. And
yes,
what have you got? What have you guys done to train it? Like lots of instances.
So much. Okay, so it doesn't do maths very well. We know that, and it gets small things wrong. It can sometimes do really crazy maths really well, and then it doesn't understand that 0.01 is smaller than 0.1, and it's because of it's an LLM. It uses tokens to try and understand. So it's almost measuring things. So we had quite a few issues in the beginning with how it would read a number. So 5,253,000, it would leave out ands. And so that word, that reading of that number doesn't make sense. It really struggled with tenths and tens. Some of the basic operations, it would get wrong. So we've built something that we call an agentic tutor. So there's lots of little agents that do different things. The simplest one is our judger agent, and that is a very basic LLM. all this does is it matches the expected answer with the answer that the student gives. It's essentially just string. It matches a string. And it's perfect every time because it's not asking you to do any maths. It's just saying the answer is 54 and the student's given 54. Is that a string match? Yes or no? That's really fast, very cheap, and so no latency. So that is how we are 100% with our answer every single time. That is given by, which we haven't really touched on, is yes, it's AI powered, but we are humans. We have experts, math teachers who build these lessons, who design these lessons, and who write the guidance, ask the right type of questions at the right time. But they also put in the correct answer for every single slide, for every single step, for every single question. So there is no hallucinations and no wrong answers at that point. But then we've got agents for other things. So the misconceptions. So we've got an agent to just diagnose misconceptions. We have an agent for praise. So what type of praise do we want to give? We don't want it to be sycophantic, which we know that an LLM loves to be. So we want it to be specific. We needed to feel genuine. So there's a whole agent just on specific praise. We have an agent on the responses they give, if they get it incorrect once, incorrect twice. When we move on, there's a little agent to understand what's on the screen. Anyway, there's we've built lots of little bits to guardrail the experience. It is definitely not just here's ChatGPT and just teach this lesson. It's very much orchestrated, and the beauty of the LLM really comes out in these little agents. So when you are explaining a concept, that's where we let the LLM loose a little bit, because it's very good at saying something succinctly and clearly, especially if you prompt it to say it for a 10-year-old or for a 16-year-old. So that's where that intelligence layer is let loose a little bit within each of those, so that the information is conveyed in the best possible way.
So I must have watched maybe 10 lessons, and I saw no hallucinations, no errors, no misconceptions.
Yeah.
I'm just interested because I don't like the fact that the standard models are so really poor at it. Like, I understand why, but it irritates me that we've had calculators for a long time.
Yeah, yes, because those standard models, they're language models. They're not maths models.
And so, like you touched on earlier on, like, I mean, so when all that's happening, is the cost to you guys and the effort? I mean, this is all happening in a server somewhere, and it's the energy that's being created? Because I've got a vague idea of what happens like what's happening, but so when you mention the almost the energy and the effort that's being put in, what's happening? What sort of relationship? Maybe if you assume that I know very little and you want to explain it to me really simply.
What do you mean? What effort we putting in
So,
to
like the
make this
actual in
happen?
the background,
Yeah,
so when all of those little agents are making those decisions,
yeah.
so they're being hosted on a server somewhere. It's the Wi-Fi that's connecting and allowing my computer to speak to the server.
Yeah.
What's happening? I mean, is it even that interesting? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's quite a technical question. I don't think I might be able to answer. I think there is a difference between what we mean, and you asked specifically if we train our models or if we're not. So there is a difference between. So you have these large language models like ChatGPT or OpenAI that have billions of parameters around it, and these are very expensive models. So they're expensive in energy, but they're expensive in cost, and also absolute overkill. I don't need to know, I don't know, philosophy to be able to answer this question. So we use more economical models for the right thing. Those things, I don't know, technically, it happens on, I suppose online on a server somewhere, but what we will start to be doing over the next couple of years is actually training our own model that we could host. And speaking to our engineers, I mean, the holy grail would be that we would actually be able to run this just on your local computer with a download of your own, because you just have the parameters you need to be able to deliver the session. So at the moment, we are running, I mean, honestly, thousands and thousands of sessions per week. It's incredible how much data we're getting. So we are therefore able to use this data to teach the model, to train a model, a small language model. We don't need a large language model, just a small one that would be our own USP, or we would own that. And it would say something simplistically like, what do I need to do or know to be able to deliver these sessions that you have done? And at that point, we'll be able to just use the small language model to do it. And then at the moment, we write the prompts for all of these bits. We say, do this, then do this. This is the correct answer. But once we've got all that data going through and creating its own, we'd get to a point in a couple of years where you would be able to just say to the model, okay, here is a lesson on rounding to the nearest 10,000, teach it. And it will know from all the patterns of all of the lessons that we have how to teach it without us having to go in and code each bit. So I think eventually I would imagine, quite heavy in the fact that we're actually using these models and paying for them, but they're too large and not specific enough. We'll go more specific, and eventually so specific that it would just be like you could host it on your local computer and it will be a TSL model, and you just even be able to have it taught without going onto a Wi-Fi.
All right, so every one of those interactions then comes at a cost to you. It's not free. Once you built it, it's not, so you're paying for every interaction. Is that have I interpreted correctly?
Yeah, we are, but the intelligence layer is actually really cheap in a way. I don't like using this word, but it's really cost effective because per session, per event, per little use, it's really like parts of a penny. Like it's honest, it's like almost zero. You accumulate that because we've got so many thousands of sessions and so many thousands of events per session. So yes, that does accumulate, but that's not the cost to us really. That intelligence layer, which I'm calling, is the using of OpenAI or other types of servers that LLMs that we use. That's not where the cost is. Actually, the cost comes from our speech to text and text to speech and the hosting the platform and all of the other bits to make it work. Surprisingly, that intelligence layer is not that expensive. I think, so going to a small language model and then being able to host it on our own computer isn't a cost decision. I would say that maybe it is a decision on owning our own maybe way of teaching. Like we would define what that is, so that it would be our USP around that. That would be a cost, and then maybe things like not having to access the internet and make it go faster. But it's actually not a cost decision.
That makes total sense. And I've taken us off on a total tangent here, but it's just really fascinating. I'm trying to understand what happens underneath because, like I said, my understanding is limited. One final pause, because AI for schools is becoming one of those topics where everyone has an opinion and almost nobody has a plan. So AI for schools is a practical way through the noise. You all know Neil Almond, you know James, you trust them. It's not AI will fix education propaganda, and it's not fear-mongering either. It's more like, here's what it is, here's what it isn't, here's how to use it safely, and here's how not to embarrass yourself in front of your staff. So if you're already confident, you won't need it, but you'll find it interesting. And if you're not, and you're making decisions that affect safeguarding, workload, and learning, then it's definitely worth your time. The website's forschools.ai. Make your choice now. I was going to ask about the real-time decisions and also the misconceptions, but I think you've actually done a really good job of explaining the decision-making process. Is there anything else you'd want to add on how it makes the decisions based on the information it gets, or how it knows to deal with a
Yeah.
distinction between error and misconception?
Well, maybe just our journey with this was at the start. We just really experimented with a Skye giving a hint, or we would say like guide the student and kind of saying give an appropriate hint for this answer. So here's the question, here's the student's answer. Give an appropriate guided, scaffolded question to help build the learner's understanding in the next try. Something like that, big fancy prompt to make them do that. But that was quite open-ended. And then when we built our own, so when we moved to agentic tutor and we built our own misconception agent, that was much better because we first identified the type of misconception it is. And sometimes it's not a misconception. So I think we probably shouldn't call it a misconception agent. It's more like, I don't know, learning breakdown agent, because it could be a misconception loop, but it could be a procedural problem, like they've done something procedural, or there's a lack of knowledge or understanding from, there's a gap in understanding, or it could be a modality issue. They don't quite understand what's on the screen, and they get confused. They're answering the wrong part of the question, or it might be something about distraction. So once we were able to identify, so first step, identify what's happening, then that's where the magic came in, because then we were able to be much more tailored and specific in the type of guidance we give in the next step, rather than, oh, it looks like, you've given the wrong answer, try again. Okay, it was never as bad as that, but now it's a lot more bespoke. And that's specific instant feedback is really important, which is the whole point of one-to-one, right? I mean, you got to get that part right, because that's why it's so effective, because we go to where the student is and move from what they don't know to what they do know. So that's the pathway we need. And so it's been just a really important step for us to define this agentic tutor. And also, just to go on a little bit more about that, so I said I'm going to the US to go and talk at a conference, but because we've got we've got a Gates scholarship as well. We're going to be working with Stanford and Cornell, where we're going to be looking at all of this data. So it is connected to the misconception, where we're trying to look at the sequences of all the patterns of behavior or of behavior that precedes one of these breakdowns. So it's good looking at that exact breakdown and say, okay, what's happening here? It's a misconception, or it's a behavioral issue. But what is interesting is taking this thousands and thousands of events and trying to see what precedes that breakdown and trying to understand that learning sequence that gets us to that point. Once we know that, we will be able to more in real time personalize even more and quicker and intervene before the breakdown happens. So it might be that we see a student what you certainly don't want is right, because what probably follows that is disengagement. That's not a ZPD. That's not if the student is getting everything right, totally disengaged. You don't want to see wrong, because it probably will see disengaged or frustrated. What you do want to see is got it wrong. Then they had to verbally reason, explain. There's a bit of guidance. They got better. There was some transfer to the next section. There was how do we kind of measure these aha moments? And if we can start getting these sequences, we can intervene. Okay, this is the second or third wrong. What tutor move can we use at this point to help improve? Maybe it is red flag, conceptual loop about to happen. We can intervene and be like, okay, let's just see if we, able to go back and try and do some of this. Or red flag, the student's about to become disengaged. Okay, so what type of mechanism what tutor move can we deploy now to try and get that student back on track? Anyway, so that's going to be super fun. And I think that they're going to be able to take a lot, because there's going to be a lot of learning engineers being able to look at this data, sequence data at scale. And I think that will help us build out this idea of personalization and misconception even more.
I mean, the general sort of trend is that things move really fast in this world. I mean, with your team of engineers and things, are you guys like a fast moving fleet of ships, or are you a big tanker that will take its time turning around in different directions? I mean,
Well,
where best
I
you
know what the
placed?
answer should be, and no, that it is a very leading question. Yes, we definitely nimble and very quick, and as you can see, it has been a massive change for our company. We've had to well, we took a really big decision to move into AI tutoring. A really hard decision because we've been delivering for over a decade with thousands of tutors. Um, but the budget problem and the problem that there's not enough scale continues to be there. So and we were looking at this AI situation, and if that is our North Star, our mission is to reduce this gap in maths attainment, then this is what we should be looking at. And it was that decision, how much of this is hype, what will stick, what will stay, will this actually be good learning? And we reiterated very quickly on it. We sat down, small team, started to look, very prototyping, looking, going into schools, watching students interact with it, asking for teachers' feedback really quickly. And we were able to turn this tanker very quickly, pivot completely 360 within 6 months. And we things are moving so quickly. At one point there was not a week that was going by where we were not getting another ChatGPT version. So we have to be nimble and we have to be quick. And we are continuously adjusting. And I think with this work that we're doing with Accelerate and with Gates, it will allow us to do a lot more experimentation. And I think that's the key for being nimble too. Because if you're just treading water and trying to get the next thing out, we don't have enough headspace and time to experiment and prove what's working and what's not. So a lot of what we're going to be doing and looking at is how that team can help us do versioning, A/B testing, experimenting. I don't know, maybe, we start testing, does a scaffolded we do approach, is that the most effective way to do it? Maybe we can build another type of lesson and see if the outcomes are different. And I think we should be nimble and we need to be using this opportunity. And because we don't have to train 2,000 tutors to make a change, a change is instant across all of our lessons. A tutor behavior is Skye, and Skye, it changes instantly. So the very nature of how this has been built, the system's built, means we can move quickly and should.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't for a second think you would be a tanker, but I know how hard it is to get developers to continue working for the whole 5 days of the week. So,
Yeah, yeah.
well done to you guys for keeping the team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where does the teacher sit in this system? So obviously they're really, really
Mm.
important in terms of the actual development of the approach the Skye takes. But we're not talking about replacing the classroom teacher in terms of lessons. Is this supplementary for pupils in addition, but they may also do whole class supplementary set, but it's almost like an additional
Mm.
lesson. Am I
Mm.
interpreting things right?
I think it's a really good question to ask, because when you're thinking about tutoring, there's a lot of private tutoring that comes to mind too, right? Where you be using it as a parent for your student, for your child. So for us, we sell to schools. Our product we sell to teachers. Teachers are really important part of this story. So where do they sit in the system? Squarely, straight from the beginning, right at the start. So they're the ones who decide who's going to get the tutoring. They're the ones who decide what program they're going to follow. So will they go on a learning program? They decide when the sessions are going to happen, the time of day, how they're going to carve out. Are they going to be using it as for all of their year sixes to get ready for SATs, or they're going to pull out a cohort of students to help them build up number place value in year six? They are very involved with real-time monitoring, seeing that the students are arriving. What are their skill check-in, check-out questions? Is their confidence improving or not? So they have progress reports. They have to monitor our flagging. So we've got a safeguarding system where we need to monitor, we track, and give feedback if there's anything. So they've got to be there. They may, or a teaching assistant or the supervisor in the room, we want a person to be in the room. So it would need that. They're the one who maybe sets it as homework. So they are a very important stakeholder in the system. And we really need to make, and we do try and make sure that the way what we definitely don't want this product to be is more work for the teacher. I mean, we in so many schools and we work so closely with teachers. And I mean, obviously, the biggest problem is just time. So this cannot be onerous and extra work. So it's got to really flow seamlessly. It's got to be easy to onboard. Students need to be able to pass all their computer checks and tech checks very easily. They need to be able to monitor and check that they're working according to what they should be very quickly and easily. So we definitely try and make sure that it's not a time sink.
Yeah, and that's always a really difficult balance to strike, and teachers are central, but also we want to make it as easy as possible for them because they've got so many other things they're doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I say, I mean, like certainly from my perspective, I just had to show my, son how to use my laptop, and he was gone, he was off, so yeah, both of them actually. So I think there are very few barriers to get set up, as long as the school's got the resources. So I mean, I suppose my final question is, do you have? I mean, it's very early days. Do you have any evidence of how Skye's doing so far, if it's improving outcomes, and what are you still learning about Skye that you're going to use as you continue to develop the system and the approach?
So when we were first piloting and going into schools and checking what's working and what's not working, we used some metrics to see how Skye was performing against our human delivered sessions. So we were delivering both simultaneously, so we could compare. And because the structure of our lessons were the same, it's just the delivery is different with Skye. We were able to check. So we again, that's why we really need to get more into the learning sequences and understand on detail. But we definitely looked at the pre-post, the classic assessment check to see out of the sessions that students were being taught and then they answered the question when a human was delivering the session and when Skye was delivering the session, was there a difference in outcomes with our post-session checkout question? And the AI was like a couple of percent more. It's performing a little bit more. So I would say it was on par. So that was enough for us to be confident that at least when it was looking at those outcome metrics, we were on par. We then changed AI, the Skye to adjust more to a check-in question. So in our human delivered sessions, we didn't have a check-in question. So we put a check-in question in, and then we added the personalized pathway. And there we actually saw that so it's not compared to the human, but out of the students, when they got the check-in question 34% of the time wrong, they were getting the check-out question 92% of the time correct. So that was good proof, as far as that can go, that's working. Confidence was that confidence check we built in to Skye, so we didn't have to compare it to the first to the human, but they were 64% of the time more confident. So there was a 66% more confident, 64%. They kind of was the same. So Yeah, no, no, but it was 64 ended up more confident, yes, and 66 show increased confidence and over time from session to session. So that was a good indicator that we're going in the right direction. What other things? We did Educate Ventures research. They evaluated Skye. We were trying to get these external validations. So we got that in. I've mentioned the Accelerate grant. We got that. We are delivering to different districts in the US, and they are doing a hardcore impact evaluation on us. Um, and then we've obviously got all of the feedback from schools about outcomes and how they're improving it, and what they say that they enjoy the fact that we can launch at any time. It's easier to organize. They're seeing that the students are engaged. There was a lot of interests. There's a lot of interest in being an AI product as well. I'm sure that will taper off in time, but there definitely is a lot of quite convincing evidence that we have accumulated already after a very short period of time it gave us the confidence to pivot.
I like the way you're framing your sort of impact, because sometimes we can get a bit caught up in the headline data, and things don't say what they say they do. But if you're comparing like for like, and if you're comparing what it was like when they went into the lesson, not compared with afterwards, I think probably a lot more realistic, because it's ultimately it's what does the teacher do, or what does Skye do based on that information that's important. I think,
Yeah.
I think like Tadape listeners, are, I think, the most discerning and deep thinking listeners out there, so they don't necessarily listen to what I say, but they make up their own minds, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I think, with a lot of artificial intelligence and a lot of sort of companies in this space, there's a lot of wizards, like almost got like a Wizard of Oz situation going, where when you actually look behind, the engine room of the Emerald City, there's not a whole lot going on that's different. So from my perspective, I massive respect and appreciation for you actually allowing me to ask you questions that aren't necessarily, easy to field, but are the kind of questions that I think listeners will be asking whenever they're talking to people about the decisions they're making in school. So I think that certainly counts for something, because it's a world in which I'm naturally skeptical about some of the claims being made, and the fact that you would let me ask you, 60 minutes worth of questions, and with complete honesty, I think it means a lot is what I'm trying to say. So I really appreciate you giving me your time today to ask those questions.
No, thank you. I totally agree. And I think in the education space, when we try and look for it's such a complex thing to measure learning and understanding and impact and outcomes. And I think we can get carried away with trying to find an answer in a statistic or a percentage of something to prove that it's working, or where it's not, where it's a lot more complex than that. And I mean, we even talked about some of these things earlier. We were saying, well, should we be measuring longer term memory and understanding? Is that how you should be measuring the effectiveness of your product? And so you have to have the right measures in place to be able to do that. And that is definitely something we'll continue to work on in the future, to get more evidence. And that's how you should triangulate. You should try and understand from different points what's working and what's not working, because some aspects could be working while others maybe not. There's not just a single number that shows and proves impact.
Quite often I'll return to themes, a couple of years later to see how things have gone. So I think that'd be a very exciting one, is to find out where you are, for instance, when my 8-year-old is in year 6 and my oldest has been in secondary school for a couple of years, and see what is their experience with it like then, because I have got recordings of them telling me what they think, and I'll include it at the end of this episode so that anyone can hear their initial thoughts. I did say to Sophie I'd share them, and she's more than welcome to use them, but they give me their honest opinion. My 8-year-old, he wants to be on it, so if nothing, you've certainly got the engagement right, because he's asking me in the morning, once he's done his rock stars, once he's done his reading and his spellings and his handwriting, can he do his can he get my laptop out? I'm like, okay.
That's great to hear.
So I mean, all I have to do is say thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure too. Lovely. Thank you.
And everyone at home, until next time, thanks for listening.